Hello, UCAR. Peter Christensen here, coming to you from the CEO's desk. So a few weeks ago, we did a video about some changes to the Code of Ethics that came in May and were effective in June. And we focused really on Article 10 and some of those significant changes. We're going to hit a few more changes. There were quite a few. So this doesn't even cover all of them, but we're going to go through some changes to Article 1 and Article 3. These are not changes to the article itself. They're changes to the standards of practice. So those are the little numbered paragraphs after the actual article, but they're pretty much part of the article in effect. Okay, so let's talk about it. Just kind of interesting. I think they were a little bit taking advantage of an opportunity to just clean some things up, but then some of the other stuff kind of has the vibe of this new world, post-settlement world. And so let's dive in. So the first one we're looking at is Standard of Practice 1-12, if you're following along at home. So this used to only, it's one of those that says, basically, when entering into a listing contract, you have a duty to advise your seller of the following things. And then it had 3 numbered items. Well, now it's 5. So the first one they added was number 2. The fact that broker compensation is not set by law and is fully negotiable. Now, I feel like that's been the case, at least as long as I've been around in this industry, that it's not set by law and it is fully negotiable and always has been, but they want you to point that out to your client. There you go, seller. This is not set by law. This is what our brokerage charges, and it's fully negotiable. Okay, the second one is number 3 in that 1-12. The options and amounts of compensation, if any, that may be offered to sub-agents, buyer/tenant agents, and or brokers acting in legally recognized non-agency capacities. So the BAC went away, but we can still offer compensation to prospective buyers' agents. It just has to be done through the with the approval of the seller, right? Well, again, in Utah, we had a line in the listing agreement that said what compensation would be offered in the BAC back then. This is not a new concept in at least in Utah. It's not. So this, again, not life-changing. It's kind of already in the documents. So if you're going through the listing agreement, you're going to hit that, and it's in the new updated listing agreement. We've talked about that in prior videos. So again, but interesting. They made a point to emphasize it in the Code of Ethics. And then Standard of Practice. So that's all for Standard of Practice 1-12 that we're going to talk about. Standard Practice 1-13. So this is the same thing, but on the buyer side. Here are a list of things you are required to advise your buyer about when entering into an agency agreement. So they added number 2, the fact that broker compensation is not set by law and is fully negotiable. Again, I don't know that it was ever set by law in Utah, and it's always been fully negotiable. So not a new concept, but I believe that's in the agency forms as well. There's if I remember right, a big paragraph about that, or at least a note on that. So, but again, they made a point to add it to the list on the Code of Ethics, in the Code of Ethics. Okay, and the last one we'll highlight from Article 1 is Standard of Practice 1-16. Now, this is interesting. This is just interesting. It says, when acting as a listing broker or property manager, realtors shall not access or use or permit to enable others to access or use the property on terms or conditions other than those established by the owner or seller. So just responsible stewardship of the property. you won't allow anything to happen contrary to the seller's wishes in accessing the property, viewing the property, how the key box is handled, all that kind of stuff. But the change here, that concept was already in 116. A lot of that language was already there, but they added in when acting as a listing broker or property manager. It used to just say something like realtors shall not access or use. Didn't differentiate when acting as listing versus another capacity. So that's kind of interesting. When I first read that, I thought, okay, where are they going with this? But it'll resolve itself. Just hang with me. Okay, we're going to jump to Article 3. I don't believe anything was changed in Article 2 with this update. No, it doesn't look like it. So, Article 3. A few little changes. Right in 3-1. So, these are all, again, in the Standards of Practice. Standard Practice 3-1. When acting as exclusive agents or brokers of sellers/landlords, realtors will work with sellers, landlords to establish the terms and conditions of offers to cooperate. I believe before it just said that they will work to establish terms and conditions, but they added in, or will establish or something like that, but they added in that realtors will work with sellers. So that's interesting. Again, in practice, I think that was mostly happening. But in Utah, we've had the practice of having that in the listing agreement for a number of years to get your seller's approval. If you're changing that on the MLS, you're really supposed to be getting your seller's approval on a change form, so that the seller was really involved in that discussion of what was being offered as cooperative compensation. Well, again, right here, it's put in there that the realtor will work with, the listing agent will work with the seller. So just, again, another emphasis of you're going to communicate with, involve the seller in these decisions. A reference to offer of cooperative compensation is gone in there. Again, that concept of the BAC in the MLS is gone, and so they took that out. Okay, Standard Practice 3-2. It says, if compensation, so again, these are all amending existing standards of practice, so I'm kind of trying to hit what's the big changes in language. If compensation is offered or advertised by the listing broker, so then it goes into any change in offered compensation must be communicated as soon as practical after the submission of a purchase contract or lease. The listing broker may not unilaterally modify the offer of compensation. That was all in there before. It's that first line. If compensation is offered or advertised by the listing broker. So again, I guess just emphasizing like, hey, it's not a given. It's not a given. It's if it is, because the seller may opt not to. Again, they could have opted not to prior to this, but it's now in there in writing. Then they added a second paragraph. Realtors are prohibited from delaying or withholding delivery of a buyer's/tenant's offer while attempting to negotiate compensation. So don't want you holding it up, because now there's a chance you're working out your compensation on the side with the listing broker, with the seller. Buyer may not necessarily be driving that, and that's okay. You can do it through the REPC, through the buyer, or you can do it separately between brokerages. But this, always look out for your client's best interest first. And this is just reiterating that. You shouldn't delay the offer because you don't have your compensation worked out. But there's more. There's more, because I can see, some of you, whoa, hey, wait a minute. But if they go under contract and, how are we supposed to work that out if it's not resolved? These ethical obligations in no way restrict the realtor's or client's ability to negotiate compensation in the client's best interest, including in offers to purchase or lease. So there you go, right there, including in offers to purchase and lease. Whoa. In the Code of Ethics, it's referencing offers of cooperative compensation in offers to purchase and lease. Again, there's another video I have about why that was always permitted in a certain fashion, but this is kind of reiterating something in Article 16 saying you won't make an offer contingent on the compensation in certain circumstances, but there's a separate video about that. Okay, so again, it's a fine line, right? Hey, don't hold up an offer because you're not getting what you want out of it unless it's not in your buyer's best interest. And so that's why you got to have a really good relationship with your buyer, and they have to understand what's going on. Buyer, you're going to pay me X amount, but let's try to negotiate it in the deal, because it's just money out of your pocket for the sale, for the commissions, for whatever you're paying for. And so let's, there you go. That second half of that paragraph is talking about, unless it's in your buyer's best interest, you can make the offer, you can make it contingent on, one of the terms is, hey, you'll pay my buyer's agent X amount of money, seller. That's covering a cost for me because as a buyer, because I'm going to have to pay my agent out of my own pocket if you're not willing to pay for it after you get the proceeds. And the seller can say yes or no to that. It's a negotiable item, right? And so I like that they put that in there to say if it's still the driving force should be what's in your client's best interest, not what's in the brokerage's best interest. Okay? And then last one, so we're circling back to that 1-16 where I told you they made not misusing the property, not showing or using the property in a way that's contrary to the seller's desires, but it only it points out specifically, listing brokers, you can't do this. Well, forever there was a redundancy in the Code of Ethics in 1-16 and 3-9, which basically said the same thing. I always thought it was funny. But 3-9 says, when acting as a cooperating broker or in a capacity other than as a listing broker or property manager, realtors shall not access or use or permit or enable others to access or use property on terms or conditions other than those established by the owner or the seller. Well, they didn't have that first line in this before. That was changed to say when acting as a buyer's broker or other non-listing capacity, listing agent capacity. So 1-16 covers don't misuse the property for listing brokers. 3-9 covers it for buyer's brokers. Why was that always the intent? I don't know, but they clarified because it used to just say pretty much the same thing. Realtors shall not allow it to be used. What difference does that make if I was sitting in an ethics hearing and somebody allowed somebody to access a property or use the key to access a property against the seller's wishes? It wouldn't. I guess now you'll just point to, oh, wait, were you the listing agent? Okay, then you violated 1-16, Article 1. Were you the buyer's agent? Okay, then it's 3-9. So it's Article 3. I don't know that it makes that big a difference, but they felt it necessary to specify, which I don't know, in a way clears it up for me. Why did you have the same thing in slightly different wording in two different articles? Well, now we know. Maybe that's what they meant all along. So that's it. We'll try to get you an update. We'll maybe go through some of the other changes. You know, if they're not just cosmetics, they're cosmetic, we might not worry about it. But these aren't, again, I don't think there's a single concept in here that's new or different than what we've been doing. But I wanted to highlight what's actually been put into the code. There was no real legal advice in here. There never is. It's always just information, people. If you need legal advice, please contact your attorney. Thanks for tuning in.